Hi guys, welcome to week 3 of social media and sports marketing. This week we're really going to be focusing on campaign planning, creation, and then implementation, since you guys will be implementing it at the end of this week, even though that is technically part of your week 4. So let's begin. All right. So for campaign creation, if you guys want, you can go to your activity 3.6a and download the one worksheet. The worksheet for your assignment will follow along with this lesson completely. Also, I would like to point out, if you download that worksheet, make sure you're opening it up in the Adobe PDF Writer, because if you highlight over any field, you will get tooltips that I added in for your assignment, letting you know more exactly of what I want and what I'm looking for. All right, so in this section, we're going to be going over audience research, setting your objective, auditing your technology, developing a plan, content creation, and delivery. We will also get into more detail on the sections of content creation as well. All right. So we're looking at, what steps do professionals take in planning a campaign? You should have watched the video with Brian from Joe Gibbs Racing, and he talks about what steps they take in planning their campaigns. And while the videos are a little bit older, they're a few years old, they still take similar steps. And we're talking about, larger campaigns, ones that have more detail, but these steps can be involved just at a different level. Maybe you wouldn't give as much information or have to do as much research when you're doing like a day campaign or something that's very tiny. But we're looking at, when you're part of an event and you're the social media team, that's really part of planning this campaign and what you guys are going to be doing for your own brand and your own personal brand campaign. Because now that's what we're focused on, right? You guys will be planning campaigns this week for your own personal brand. And so you have to look at, what are you an expert in? What field are you an expert in? What industry? And what is the event that you're going to be really focusing on, or what's the content going to be focused on from that point of view and from that perspective? So even if all of you guys picked the same event, you would all be looking at it from a different perspective and could have your own unique campaign or work together and help each other to get content out and cross-promoting through your own different angles. And so that's why it's good to plan something out. All right, so one of the first steps we have to take is knowing our audience. And it's not just who's our target audience, because that's great, but you need to know who your current audience is. And you can look at it from different angles. One is you have a large target audience that you work with, somebody like Walmart, and they need to be more specific for their campaigns. And so they need to narrow down who they are targeting so that they don't waste their marketing dollars targeting to such a broad audience that isn't necessarily going to be really interested in their products. Especially when you're paying per impression, you want to make sure that those impressions count, that they are a qualified target audience. And so you need to understand, who is your current audience? And do you need to narrow it down, or do you need to build and reach that target audience based off who your current audience is? If your audience is smaller and you're not really reaching who you should be reaching, and they're not really interacting with your product in the way you need them to be, then you need to figure out, how do you communicate with them, or how do you reach a different audience? Which brings us to point 2, who are you targeting? You should have done your target audience research last week, where you really sat down and figured out, what are their demographics? What are the psychographics? Looking at your industry, how do you reach them? Is their lifestyle like? What are their problems? And so knowing this is going to help you build your campaign. And you build a campaign different based off of who you're trying to reach, based off of even location, based off of gender, based off age, based off knowledge, based off of the way you speak to somebody and you explain something. You could have the same skill set that you need to explain to 5 different people in 5 different ways. And so you really need to understand who your target audience is, and will they see a need for your service, your campaign, why will they get involved? You also need to know how they view your organization. So you know your obstacles, or you know how to work with them to get them to help promote your brand in a different way. So do they see it in a positive way, a negative way? Do you need to overcome something? Are they doubtful because they really don't know who your brand is? These are all different steps that will help you build into the content creation for your brand. The next step takes us back to week 2, going into what is the broad purpose of your campaign. And this is going to be based off of where your brand currently is, or what your quarterly goals are, what the annual goals are for the brand itself. And so these all fit in based off of different criteria. The first one I have listed here, changing the brand image, is probably the least likely one that somebody would do. And it's something that you put a lot of thought into. Do you want to change that brand image? And is it a campaign that's being done based off of just changing a logo? And is it a small change, a big change? Are you doing it because the brand is moving, or some type of negative connotation? And so you need to look at, what the purpose of doing that is. Engagement. Are you trying to create trust between the brand and the user by creating these interactions between the two of them in order to create trust? Revenue generation. We know that you don't do this right off the bat, and that revenue generation comes in time, especially with social media marketing. You have to have trust, loyalty, participation, brand awareness, all before you get to that point. But how do you do it in creative ways? Customer loyalty. Do you maybe have an audience and you have a lot of new users, but you need help getting them to come back and getting them to return? Are you looking for participation? Getting people to share content, getting them to interact with one another, getting that camaraderie amongst your fans, and getting them to not just, push share, but actually create a conversation. You want them to take action and not just take a survey. Taking a survey is not participation. Taking a quiz is not participation. Getting them to share those results, post them publicly, talk with other people, that would be participation. Brand awareness. Getting them to understand who your brand is. Getting eyeballs on your brand, creating that volume, which is the first step that everyone needs to take when starting off with a brand. So you need to set that broad objective within your brand. After you do that, you need to set your SMART goals. And make sure that you understand how to set a SMART goal and what your SMART goals are. Remember, your SMART goals, the S tells us who, what, when, where, and why. It's specific. And so you need specific details and information. You cannot have anything broad within your SMART goals. When you guys are looking at your SMART goals, I want you to do external goals for your campaign that you can measure your audience involvement in your campaign to see, are they helping you reach that broad goal? And your SMART goals should be reflective of your broad goal. So if you are looking for brand awareness, your SMART goals should reflect volume and getting followers, getting page views. If you're looking at engagement, you should have that two-way interaction. And so they should all completely match. They should be measurable, specific numbers. You need to have that, how much are you trying to reach? When are you reaching the goal? Are you trying to get 20 followers within 1 week? Are you trying to get, grow by 20%? What exactly are you doing it? And how will you know that you actually reach that numerical goal? There should be definitely a number attached to a KPI, a key performance indicator, a metric value within your SMART goal. A, is it attainable? Can you actually attain it? Or are you saying that you're trying to get 1,000 new followers when you only have 2 within a week? Is that really realistic? Which brings us to the next one, realistic. Can you do it through that, through being attainable? And is it something that you can do based off the parameters set for you? what are the downfalls? What are the negatives? What are the positives within your campaign? How can you overcome them? And looking at the realism of the situation. Is it something that can actually be done based off of your resources? Timely. What is the time frame specifically? How many days? What is the exact date? What is the exact time frame? So you can measure your campaign data beforehand, during, and after. And it should all be specific. Again, remember, specific is who, what, when, where, and why. And you can go over and look at our SMART goal information or how to create SMART goals from the previous information provided for you. You guys, again, will be doing 3 SMART goals that relate to your broad goal. And so make sure that they are using, and you're able to measure them based off of the platforms that you're using for your campaign. You then want to audit your technology. What tools do you already use? And go through them. You guys have sites that you set up in week 1. Which ones do you have? How much action are you getting on them? And you can look at your analytical data from Google Analytics for your blog. You can look at Facebook Insights for Facebook. You can look at Twitter Insights, Instagram if you are using that, their business platform, Pinterest Business, etc. YouTube has their own analytics platform. And look at how many followers, friends, subscribers, how much action they're getting. And so you can see which ones would be most beneficial for you based off of your goal. And where would you start when you start creating your roadmap? Would you start from your blog? Would you start from Twitter, Facebook? Where do you have the most viewers? And how can you drive them to do the action that you want them to do in order to meet your objective? You also want to look at other platforms to see, could they be a potential asset for you based off of your campaign idea? So maybe Snapchat, maybe a different video resource. Maybe you're looking at using Facebook's video, live video. And you want to do a comparative chart of, would this one be better or this one? Why would this one be better than this one? And figuring that out. And then based off of what your goal is and what your idea is, you want to look at which tools are going to create effective results. For your campaigns, you have to use your blog, the school issued one, unless you got special permission from me to use a different one that is hosted and has Google Analytics attached to it. You must use your Twitter account, and you must use at least one other social media platform, content platform. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. But they have to be content platforms that you're putting content out on. And they have to be social media platforms as well, so that you have that interaction. And so these are the requirements for your assignment. You can use more, but you cannot use less. Then before you start allocating time and your resources, you need to look at who they are. So how many people do you have involved? Is it just you? Or maybe you are, working with a classmate from your own points of view, and so you're writing, about the Super Bowl from this point of view, and they're doing it from this point of view, and you guys are going to be cross-promoting content or using the same post and going back and forth and teaming up. Or maybe you have your own personal brand, and you guys have, your own talk show as part of your content, and so you have somebody else working with you, and you can list them as a resource. You also need to list how much time you have. Remember, you are doing a 4-week campaign, and you have to have 5 days of content at minimum. But you can prepare content ahead of time. You can pre-plan it, pre-write it. And so you need to look at that and evaluate how much time you have based off your current schedule before you really dive in and start creating content for something that maybe you don't have the time for. You then need to look at what events you're centering your project around. Is there a specific event? Or if you can't think of what to do your project around, research and look at what events are happening during the time frame that you'll be executing your campaign, before, during, after. And you need to be able to figure that out. And also look at what other events could be overshadowing or your competitors' events that maybe you need to be prepared for when creating your campaign. If there are 10 events on that weekend, maybe the audience won't be there because you're a new brand, and so maybe switching weekends would be better if you can do that. And so you really want to understand that. Also, if you're covering like the NFL draft, you should really be looking specifically, what are the exact dates and times that it's going to be airing? Is there any specials? What's going on? And so I want to see you guys actually research this section when you're doing this for your assignment and put in specific dates, times, and information for your event. It will help you with your content creation. Connecting. This is all part of your roadmap. You need to understand where you want your viewers to end up and what you want them to connect with. So where should they begin with your campaign, with your content, and where do you want them to end? What do you want them to do from a user experience point of view? Because you need to figure out how to get them there in as few steps as possible, but reaching the most amount of people and getting the exposure that you want. And so you need to figure this out from a content point of view and make sure that you're doing it with flawless execution in a way that makes sense to them. You also need to create a timetable. You need to look at how long is it going to take for you to create all your resources that you need, from your imagery, your designs, because you guys will need to recreate your designs and create new headers and cover images to promote your campaign, or graphics for articles within your campaign. So you need to look at that, or the content you're creating. How long do you think it's estimating going to take you between that and your research? When is the content due each week? Especially if you're working with multiple people. And if it's just yourself, set different timelines for yourself. Give yourself a timeline. When will the content be approved? If somebody else is writing, you need to make sure that you're approving it by a certain time, or that if you have somebody else proofing it for you, when will they get it back to you? And then when is it going to be released? And this has to be specific. I want to see you guys planning out, Monday at this time, Wednesday at this time, Friday at this time, and knowing, blog is going to be listed at this time, Twitter is going to be this time, and Facebook maybe is going to be at a different time, based off of the timetables that we're going to go through in just a minute. And I want to see it specific. All that data will then go on to your 3.6b when you list out the times that you're going to be executing your content, and it will have a purpose behind it. Now that you also have your time and who's helping you, you need to figure out and assign roles and be specific with who is in charge of what part. Even if multiple people are going to work on it, you need to have a point person in each section. You also need to define any policies, especially if you have contests or you have internal policies that you need to create. For, if there are any complaints, if there's an issue with your campaign, how do you change your timetables? What do you do with pooling content? If somebody doesn't put something out there, who takes charge of it? How do you communicate information? How do you get back to your fans? At what point, how long, much time does it take for you to get back? What are the procedures in place as well within sending through content for approval or before executing it? Who pushes it live? Who can make different decisions? And make policies for yourself and set yourself and make yourself accountable for getting back to people and how you want to set up your brand and how you want to be known. And underneath that, part of this is all that, figuring out who's going to create your content, your design, who will push your content, and who's in charge of each one of those areas. You also want to ensure that you have consistency on all platforms. Go through and look at my week 1 notes and go back and refine your pages. Make sure your URLs are all up to date. Make sure that you have the same cross-promotional URLs and that you're connecting to the right platform and that they all work. Make sure you update your platforms that have the same imagery and that you're promoting your campaign with your visual billboards, right? With your cover images, with your headers. Make sure that all your content's being written from the same tone, especially if you have multiple writers, unless they're showing their own identities. And that everyone understands the tone of the campaign in general, the vibe, and so that your content matches the imagery. And again, if there's rules and guidelines, make sure you iron them out. All right, the next step is identifying your monitoring tools. So for all your KPIs, your key performance indicators, and you should know what they are they Facebook followers? Are they Twitter followers? Are they, page likes, etc.? You should know what your KPI is, and you should know what platform you're using to monitor it. You must use Google Analytics in some way within your platforms to monitor and measure your blog performance. But you need to make sure that you're lining them up, and so that the platform that you're saying that you're using to monitor it can match the KPI, and that you're looking on the platform and seeing that they match up. And I want you guys to visit the measurement tool and make sure that you're seeing it visually, because you need to make sure that they can measure the results you need. You also need to look at your delivery tools. What do you need to execute your content, and do you have it? Do you have to have an iPad, a laptop, your smartphone? Do they have to have a data plan? Do you have to have a repeater because maybe in the area you're in, it's hard to get a signal? Do you have to have certain software installed? Is everything working properly? Are you using Hootsuite, making sure it's set to the right time zone, making sure everything is set up to the right accounts and that's executing properly? All right. Once you know all that information, a few other things that you want to know is how to plan your content. And so we're going to look at some of the best times for planning content. Now, before I get started on this, I want to sit there and preface that in sports, timing is going to be different. So you have to be making sure that you're looking at your industry and monitoring it and your progress through your own data and results. And you are posting when content is live in sports as well. And that you're not just saying you're not going to do it based off of the suggested time frames based off of when most people are online, because it's all based off what you're trying to achieve. So you have to use some logic. All right, so most blogs are read, as we've seen before, at 11 a.m. on Mondays. And so it's smart to get your content out before then and start promoting it around then. You also see that they die off towards the night. And so even if you put it out at night, because maybe you're putting something live after an event, that you're promoting it again in the morning in a new way. And so looking at this time frame, it's, you can figure out when you're going to get the most eyeballs on your blogs, when you're going to get the most volume. When it comes to Facebook, most campaigns are launched on a Friday, yet there's more engagement on a Tuesday. Why do you guys think that matters? What's the importance in that? What can we learn from it? It means that there's probably more volume on that Friday, but it takes a few days for people to see it, digest it, share it, before they start interacting and engaging with the campaign on a Tuesday. And so most people are launching it on a Friday. And this next graph shows us just that on Saturdays, more people are sharing content. And they are getting it out there. And so if you launch on a Friday, you're going to see more people sharing it, especially in the mornings. And so it's important to have it out there on those days. And you can also look at some of these other times that are listed on the screen, for the best time to post, when most campaigns are launched, the worst time. But just because it's the worst time, it just means the volume is lower. And so look at your campaign and understand your brand and your industry when looking at these tips. There's also a 70-20-10 rule. Make sure that 70% of your content is original. It can be pre-scheduled. That is something that you can write on your own and you can research. 20% can be shared content of other people and 10% promotional for your brand. But you don't want everything to be promotional because, again, this is not a press release. It's not an advertisement. Social media marketing campaign should be organic and not an advertisement. And so I'm not looking to see advertisements at all, but organic content. Twitter is very similar to Facebook in the time frames. It's just the hours are a little bit shorter. And this is really based off volume. It's shown that a lot of people are more engaged in Twitter at night, even though that you have a higher volume during these time periods. And while it does say avoid posting after 8 p.m. on Friday, again, reminder, when you have a sporting event, post live, look at campaign hashtags, look at, the event hashtags and use them to reach your audience. Connect with them live. And make sure that you're using Twitter handles, again, for specific companies when you're mentioning them or people, but try not to start your post with one. Add a dot or something else so that it doesn't go just to them and everyone else sees it. LinkedIn. It's a personal brand that you guys are using, so LinkedIn could be very important for getting your content out there to showing that you are a professional. And so the best times to post are pretty logical, before and after work, with the worst time during the peak hours. During when people are sleeping, at 10 to 6 a.m. But also you don't want to be posting necessarily during the day. You want to do before, after lunchtime, if you're really trying to get the audience. And the peak days are Tuesday through Thursday. Monday, a lot of people are coming into the office, catching up. Friday, they're trying to finish up on things or trying to get out. So if you can plan your content accordingly, try to do it on the certain days that are going to be more effective for your brand. All right. And so part of also timing, you need to figure out, how much post can you pre-plan based off of your campaign. If you're live tweeting an event, you can at least pre-plan the time that you're going to start, when you're going to end, getting your content out there, when your blog post is going to be launched by, etc. Getting all your assets ahead of time that you need, and pre-planning and preparing. Even setting up a template for yourself and having an idea of what you're going to post. Knowing if you have to create live posts, again, and scheduling that as well. And when you're going to have time to interact and reply, because that's all part of the campaign. And you need to make sure that you schedule that in. You will then create your content plan, which you're going to be doing as part of your campaign. And so for you guys, let me pull this up. And let me view. Okay. You guys have several tabs, so make sure you go through all of them. The first one is tips. The second one is your overview. So this is kind of your internal plan of what you'll be doing for your own check marks of, yes, I did this, I did that, I did this. And this will help you go along with your strategy to make sure that you are doing everything that you said. You're going to list your brand name. What is your campaign name following your theme? What is your broad goals for your campaign? Is it brand awareness, engagement, participation? And then your 3 specific SMART goals that, again, relate to your campaign involvement, so fan involvement, and measuring that based off of your broad goal. For week 1, you're going to make sure that you set up your days in order. So if your campaign is starting on a Monday instead, that's fine. You can start it here. If it's starting Sunday, you can rearrange it however, or Tuesday, but you have to have the 5 days. Make sure that you update if you have these daily themes. If you don't have daily themes for your weeks, then remove them. Update this for your brand. Put the exact day number in here as well. And then for week 1, you make sure that, it shows the, these are the content platforms that you're using for your campaign and the exact steps. This is a template. This is not meant for you to use this or the student examples as exactly what you're doing. This should match your plan based off what you're doing. This data right here, you will not touch this week. You will come back and enter this in week 2. The second part of this activity is coming over to week 1. And you're going to make sure that you change the month and dates down here. You're going to update your campaign title and then what your weekly theme would be for that week of the campaign. And you're going to update all this information, keeping all these fields on the top. And you're going to put in your times that you created. You're going to update each day of the week with the content platforms that will be executed on those days. You're going to have which day 1 is to day 7 or day through day 5. And you're going to list what day of the week it is here too, and it should read in order. who the author is, if it's you or somebody else, what the content type is that you're doing, if you have media or don't, what the topic is, your keywords. What are the keywords you're targeting? Your generic keywords or your specific keywords, make sure they are here. Your actual post content. For your blog, you only have to put the post title. You can put, if it's going to be determined, you can put what it's going to most likely be with the spots that you have to fill in the text. But it should be there. If you do not have free posts, delete the fields. Do not leave fields for empty content. When it comes to Facebook or Twitter, however, you have to actually write out the post that you're going to be putting live. So you pre-plan this so that you can copy and paste it. So I want to see exactly what it looks like, including the handles, including the hashtags. And your Facebook and Twitter should look different because they're different platforms. URLs. Outside of the blog, this should be listed for URLs that are in the post. If the post does not have a URL in it, then don't include it. The shortened URL is if you're using tracking token with your Google Analytics, or if you want to create a tiny URL so that you can track, or you might want to use a bit.ly actually, so you can track the progress of that individual URL. And so you can say, okay, I'm putting this blog post out in this post, this post, and this post, but how am I going to know which post it's connected to based off of the traffic? Well, if you have 3 different tiny URLs, you can now connect them to individual posts. And then the results section, this again will be, you'll come back to this in week 2 for week 1 and put the results that you got for each individual post. And your post again should help you achieve your goal. And at minimum, you should have 5 days of content that will need to be executed in week 4. All right. So content creation. When you're creating content, you want to analyze your existing content. See if there's anything you can repurpose, reuse, or any ideas that you can reinvent. You're going to be looking also then at creating new content, and then possibly incorporating viral marketing, which is a high risk, high rewards type of content. When you're creating content, before you even start, you need to know your voice, know where you're writing from, and make sure that it's consistent, because you don't want to confuse your viewers. You also want to make sure that you're timing your content appropriately. You're not putting it out way too early, or you're not giving yourself enough time to promote an event. You're releasing it over the right amount of days and for the right amount of days, and that you have somebody scheduled to write the content, and that you have follow-up content ready to go as well to keep the longevity of your campaign. You need to know your audience and understand how to reach them, how to talk to them, what voice to reach them with, what they need. You need to also be able to solve their problems. Figure out what are their problems and how do you solve them, making the focus on them. And then making sure that you're always just honest with your content. Also part of creating content sometimes is your daily content, not just campaign content. And so when you're looking at content daily and you're checking your content as a marketing manager or social media marketing manager, the first thing you want to do is just come in and assess your accounts and check them. See what's going on. What's happening? What's your traffic look like? Is there any trends happening? You then want to make sure that you're paying attention to the people who are actually engaging with your brand. And get back to them, reply to them, show them attention, because these are people who are becoming more likely to become a loyal follower. You also then want to post content to create a conversation. So figure out how are you going to write content that is more of, going to get likes, that's going to get people talking and engaging. How do you write your content in a way that's going to stir up a conversation? You then want to seek out new followers. Not just follow people who are professionals, are stars, but you also want to look at people who are following them. People who maybe would follow you. Reach out to them, interact with them, associate with them, especially if you're starting a new brand. And you guys really need to start looking at, people within your industry, or looking at communicating with people at companies that maybe you'd want to work for, and making them see you as a professional. You also want to search for company branded keywords and terms, and I suggest that all of you guys set up a Google alert for your name, your full name, and different variations of it. Not obviously just your first name, because you might get way too many results. But to look and see, is there anything going on in the media? Have you been mentioned? Has your company been mentioned? Is it a positive or a negative? How do you use that sentiment for your content as well? I have a couple examples of content here and things that I want to show you. So when you're creating new content, one of the things that you can do, or these are different types of things you can do, is ask questions. People like to answer, but you want to make sure that you're being more specific and not too ambiguous. Also share your content and your fan content or other people's content that's related to your brand, but make sure it always is focused on your brand. Comment on your post or current events as they relate to your brand. You can also always go with inspirational posts and comments. People love to share them, but figure out a way to make them your own. And if you're working for a sports team, maybe even having all your different players record something at the beginning of the season and doing things, video or a picture with it embedded in them, or even doing historical quotes from your team, and requesting information from your fans, but making sure that you're not asking too much from them. Also, you want to make sure that you're looking at your pages. You are optimizing them. And this goes back to week 1, that your username is all consistent and that it's clear that it relates to you, that people aren't searching to try to find you. That you have a bio and that it's consistent on all your platforms so people understand who you are. That you have a consistent photo and it's visibly you. And that you have a link taking you back to your main website, your blog. This lets people see that it's connected to a legitimate site and that it's your official page, because if they go there and they can see all your follow URLs and they connect back to that page, they know that it's the official legitimate page. You also want to make sure that you're customizing content for each platform, that you're not just throwing up content and putting it to the same piece to every single platform and sharing it. This would be a downfall for your brand. So you want to make sure that you're adjusting the content for the platform it's being created for. Also, making sure that you're not just focusing on the brand, making it like a sales advertisement, but you're putting things in the background. That all your content is authentic and unique, and that it's genuine. And then focusing on quality versus quantity. I'd rather see quality blog posts than a bunch of posts that have no time, no energy, no effort put into them. When looking at at your Facebook page, there are certain things that are important that you do. And let me hit play on this one. Actually, let me escape it, and then we'll go into that. So customizing and varying your content is one. Okay, so here's a couple of different examples. Personalizing and incorporating imagery. So making people feel connected to the brand and knowing that you're part of it. Reposting and thanking fans. So using their content, but making sure you're giving them credit for it. Using live video, because it will create transparency for your audience and let them into your event, especially if you can do just a live Q&A. And you're using Facebook Live to let them be part of that experience. We see that all the time. Sharing content and video posts. Video posts, and Facebook is starting to want more and more video content on their page. So using somebody else's and cross-promoting somebody else's content. Making sure that you are also tagging people in places and posts. This will get you more recognition, more exposure. Adding call to actions, telling them what you want them to do. Using hashtags, but not using too many of them on Facebook. Using more generic ones, or if you have a brand one, or a campaign one that you want them to use. And then going back to the post frequency and time, don't overdo it on Facebook. 3 or 4 posts a day is plenty on Facebook. And make sure you're following the timetable that we went through. Here you can see an example of a post that Lolo Jones did that could have been improved. The current post says, first time ever doing a Vertec. Check out my results on @Red Bull Snapchat. #no warm up. And it gives credit to somebody without linking to them. So one of the things I said that she could have done is she was posting this on a Sunday at 9:26 p.m., which we know is low visibility. Unless it had to be posted at that time, she could have either posted it earlier in the day or waited and scheduled it to go out later. Also, she could have tagged the other person's account right here and made it live. And so I circled that over here as well. Checking into the event, connecting other people, especially if it was a Red Bull event, or being able to broaden the audience by anyone looking there. Using the brand hashtag, she created her own. And Red Bull, when they came to Full Sail, and I did a lecture with these athletes, they had said that they wanted them to all use "gives you wings" as their main hashtag to create as much exposure for it as possible and connect the post. Also, including the brand and the image. So if you have a brand, making sure they had it, she could have easily put it on here on the floor. And replying to fans and liking their comments and making sure that you are interacting with them. With Twitter content, making sure that you're posting variety. Go back to our 80-20 rule, where you're not just posting promotional posts or the same posts. Vary your content and interact with people. Tagging people through handles so that they know that you're trying to reach them. They're more likely to respond. Including clear call to actions, telling them what you want them to do again, or to take action. Doing real-time posts and live tweeting. Again, using authenticity, keywords, using hashtags, looking at what's trending, but checking the trending hashtags to make sure that they relate to your brand. And you can post here as much as you want. You should post at least 10 times a day, and that's with replies, and spacing it out so that people can see your content. Some of the posts here I had, for example, quoting and retweeting brand and fan content, asking questions to spur engagement with the hashtag, making sure that they can relate back to you or reply back to you, live tweeting team member events. So if you can't be tweeting yours, you guys can switch on and off to make sure you're covering it. Including personal content, letting them into something that's not as public. If there's a recorded event, and reality starts with this all the time, they can live tweet as the event's happening and then create a blog post about it and even save some of the pictures from the event to post live during that time period. Okay. So here was my example here. This was the current post. It was just sent over from Instagram and it's missing a lot of content. I rewrote it to take off the beginning part and put, the season is officially over and I'm super stoked to claim my first win at Worlds in my first hashtag. I found the event hashtag. It took me about an hour, but I found it. IWWF contest, thanks to my sponsors. And I put hashtag gives you wings. I then said upload the image with it and tag all the sponsors in the image in order to lessen the amount of content in the post. And make sure you also check into the location as well. It connects you with other people and you can do that. All right. The last one I'm going to quickly go over is Instagram. And we use a Pinterest in this class, but I also allow you to switch it out and use Instagram Business. So if you are using it, this could come in effective. Or you guys can use Instagram in your campaign as well and use that as a new platform. So one of the things that you want to make sure you're doing is that you are using quality content. And so you're looking at posts and editing them, using filters, and really taking the time to make it quality. Also regramming other people's posts and giving them credit for it. And using that, tagging them in it, and then maybe it will increase exposure for you because now they're being more known and they're getting connected to you. Using trending hashtags, they used to have a discovery section, and now it will tell you how many people are using that hashtag, but you can Google the top trending hashtags in Instagram for the day and try to incorporate them with your brand. Tagging people in images, it will put that on their tagged photos as long as they allow them, as opposed to just putting it in the post. You want to put it in the post if you're trying to acknowledge them or get their attention, but you can also put it in the image as well. Selling the experience, not just the brand, not making it an ad. They can see ads other places. Instagram is for laying them into your life. telling stories and creating videos. You can tell stories through a main image and then continue to tell them through Instagram stories, or tell them through video and edit your videos through multiple shots and to create a story there as well. Or take your Instagram story for the day and turn it into a video once you're done. Also making sure you're connecting with your fans, tagging them, asking them to tag themselves, and connecting with the area that you're in. Just make sure that you are checking into locations and that you are creating authentic posts and content. All right. So in this one, this was the current post example, and it's kind of dull and grungy. I went in and I adjusted it with an app, and here's a few different apps you can use to adjust your images. You guys all get all of the Adobe suite for free on your phone, so use it, utilize it, download it, play with Lightroom, with any of the other photo apps through Adobe. But make sure that you're using them to improve the quality without overdoing it. Also use branded keyword terms and trending keyword terms and hashtags. Checking in, making sure that you're adding check-ins, that you're adding Instagram handles, and that you're interacting with your fans. A lot of times people don't interact with their fans on Instagram, and it's important that you do that, either liking their comments or replying to them. All right. So once you have your content and it's created, make sure that you are cross-promoting. You're not just using one platform, you're using not even just your platforms, but you're finding other people to cross-promote with within your organization. Also use brand ambassadors and make sure that you are looking at who maybe your top fans are and interact with them and get them to promote your content. And any partnerships you might have within the event, schedule it. You need to make sure that you have a well-rounded plan and that everyone is on the same page. All right. Then make sure you execute your plan on time and according to plan. And if anything changes, that you communicate it with your team. And with me, you guys will be communicating it in 4.6a and listing any changes that you had to make for specific reasons, not just because you didn't feel like doing it. But you want to make sure that everything is on time and that you are reaching them, because your reputation depends on it, and your brand reputation depends on it. So when you're launching it, making sure you know that you update all your graphics, your checklist, that you update your URLs, you check your content, making sure you're reviewing your usability and your user experience, that it's easy to use for outsiders, not just yourself, that you didn't miss something. And again, implement it on time. Monitor and measure your results daily so you can see what's going on and do you need to make adjustments or changes as your campaign is going on, not just at the very end. And then always at the end of your campaign, evaluating the effectiveness of your results and making suggestions and changes for future campaigns. Before you even set stuff out, you can also, again, like I said, plant seeds for events as well. Making sure that if you are putting content out there, that you're promoting it. And so that you're not just putting an event up there and no one shows up. Make sure that you're setting the timeline correctly. I always say work backwards from the event date so that you can see when to be more aggressive with your content and when to be less aggressive. And understand how much time you have to follow up afterwards. If you have your own campaigns to analyze from the past, analyze them. Understand what you did right, what you did wrong, and use it to your benefit. Or look at other people's campaigns and see what they did right or wrong. And take the positives away from it and understand and learn from the negatives. And so research. Don't just throw it together last minute if you want to be successful in a campaign. Okay, so this week for your discussion, we're going to go through the third type of content that we didn't review today. And you're going to go over that in your ebook, in your e-reading book. And I want you guys to understand and identify the core components of successful viral video marketing campaigns, or viral marketing campaigns in general. And so you're going to do your reading, and you're going to choose a viral marketing video. Make sure it's a marketing video. I don't know if you guys will be able to embed the post with the new platform, but if not, just include the URL. And I want you to clearly discuss the three components of viral videos and how they apply to the video you selected. and identify at least one example of each component as it relates to the selected video. And so be specific, give details, and explain it. Don't just be generic. And these are going to be the components that you're going to be focusing on. And relate back to the reading. And do your research. Your video alone is not your cited reference. You need to cite it, but you need to also do some research to add to it and support your details. As for your assignment, you're going through your strategy document and you're going through your campaign content document. Your strategy document goes along with this lesson, and you're going to be filling it in with complete sentences as it relates to your 4-week campaign. So be specific. I will take points off, and you will need to make sure that you're going to be able to implement this over 4 weeks. You will actually be executing it. So it should be themed. It should all fit within, that kind of idea from week 2 that you're building off of. You can change it, but it should go along with that. And your campaign content document. Read through your instructions in their entirety. Look at the rubrics and make sure that you review them and you understand them. And get back to me if you have any other questions. Always feel free to reach out to me. My cell phone is usually better, or the platform. Thanks so much, guys. I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.